Up next, another superstar, Mark Finchem. He was in the Arizona State House. He's now running for the Arizona State Senate. He also won his election for Secretary of State, but they cheated. And he's also the founder and now executive director of the Election Fairness Institute. Give it up for Mark Finchem. Mark, come on up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, before I get started, everybody stand up. No, I'm serious. Stand up. This is the antidote to food coma. Turn right. Turn left. Look at the people next to you. This is your team. All right, sit down. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I'm going to talk about just a couple of things. First of all, how many of you have been to Mar-a-Lago? Anybody? Okay, a few hands up. You have an opportunity next week to do it on the cheap. So write this down, FinchemEvent.com. There's a group of folks, including Mike Lindell, who, by the way, is in the house. Give it up for Mike, an American hero. That's a guy who puts everything on the line, and I mean everything. He is making sure that his employees have a job in spite of the withering fire coming from the leftist propaganda network. So go buy some pillows, some slippers, some towels, buy something because you're keeping people employed. So FinchemEvent.com is going to be a fundraising event for my state Senate race. I'm running against the chief underminer of the 2020 Arizona Senate forensic audit. That's right, I'm challenging an incumbent who did everything he could to undermine that attempt at an audit. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to votefinchem.com. Now I'm going to get into why I'm actually up here to speak to you today. Many of you have heard that there's a problem with machines. How many have heard there's a small problem with the machines? Okay? All right. So you can actually do something about that. I know you may think, well, what can I do? I'm glad Tina brought that out. You can show up at your county supervisor and county board meetings and demand that your county commissioners, county supervisors, in fact, even your state legislators, focus their attention on paper ballots counted by hand at the precinct level on election day. That is a rock-solid solution. And you, all of you, have the ability to function there. I think you need to sit down because this is my talking time right now, okay? I don't mean to be rude, but no. We'll have pandemonium if that happens. So we are now at a place where the U.S. Supreme Court has docketed Finchem and Lake v. Fontes. You may recall that 2 years ago, Carrie Lake and I brought action in the U.S. District Court in Phoenix. We were dismissed because we brought a speculative case in front of the court. Never mind the fact that we showed that 2020 and 2022 were manipulated by software. It's the only way it could have happened. 6 states simultaneously stopped counting? Oh, but they want to have you believe, well, it was just a glitch, right? So if you've heard people like Joel Oltmann and some of the folks who know what they're talking about when it comes to computer software, machines don't have glitches. Machines do what they're told to do. So in the case of Carrie Lake and Mark Finchem v. Fontes et al., which, by the way, is the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, I call the racketeering bunch in Arizona. They knew that the system would fail. They knew it would fail in 2020, and they knew it would fail in 2022. Why did they know? Because they're the ones who are responsible for back-end reprogramming of the software that was allegedly certified by the Election Assistance Commission. They thought we wouldn't find out. But through the fullness of time and all the various cases that have been brought forward, we've been able to analyze the software. Thank you, Patrick Byrne, and so many people that have provided funding for this work. We really are riding on their backs, ladies and gentlemen. We really are. And when I hear people say, well, we're up against the government, what can I do? I can tell you what you can do. Get off the couch and every week be a pain in their tuchus. Be at their meetings. Demand answers. The overriding question that I've been asked here in every interview, in every encounter, do you have confidence in the 2024 election and our ability to have a free and fair election? Not if everybody stays home. Because very little has been done to change what happened in 2020 and 2022. And not making a change and expecting the same result is what? Thank you. Insanity. So here's what we found. And this is what has been brought up in the case that I think is going to change the election world if the Supreme Court hears the case. And by the way, you can make calls, write letters to the Supreme Court demanding that they hear this. They do listen to the people from time to time. When they have overwhelming demand from the polity, from your team, it gives a lot of weight to what they're about to hear. So here's what we found and what we presented in the form of evidence and testimony to the Supreme Court. How many of you heard of a guy by the name of Ben Cotton? A few of you, okay. Ben Cotton is perhaps one of the smartest guys on the planet when it comes to looking at software. Ben Cotton is the one who found an intrusion into DOD's records of a foreign adversary. Yet the media wants to call him less than desirable on doing software analysis. This is the guy that found it, and DOD didn't even know they'd been penetrated. We have found, number one, Maricopa County in the back end of the software rewrote the software and injected into it executable files, arguably to move votes. We all suspected it. Well, now we have the proof. We've got the code. Item number two, they lied about it in court. They said that the software was certified by the Election Assistance Commission. Well, the software that they told the Secretary of State that they were going to use was, but the software they actually used was not, because it had been altered. Then you add on top of that something that was discovered. Have you heard the term God keys? Anybody? All right, gosh, we're getting fewer and fewer and fewer people have heard of this stuff. The God key literally allows a super user to enter the system undetected, pull out a database, replace it with a new database, pull out of the system, and there is no record of them ever being there. Does that sound like a secure system to you? Sure as hell doesn't sound like it to me. So we've got the ability to alter the software that's been demonstrated. We have the ability to enter the software and inject new results. And then we have another misrepresentation. I think that's a legal term for lying. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors said that they had done LNA testing, tested for the equipment to work on all of the ballot tabulation equipment. Well, not exactly. They tested 5 of the spare machines. They did not test all of the machines as they are required to do under law and as they represented to the court that they had done. These are the things that we were complaining to the court about in 2022. But we were dismissed because it was too speculative. In other words, we knew what happened in 2020. We told the court it's going to happen in 2022, and then it happened. And in the ultimate twist of irony, on the very day that it happened, the Obama-appointed judge, Judge Tucci, decided to hit Carrie and I and our attorneys with sanctions. Why? because we brought a frivolous case on the exact day that the system failed. Does that make sense to any of you? It does not to me. Then we add some of the frosting on the cake, if you will. The machines rejected ballots at the tune of 7,000 every 30 minutes because they were 19-inch ballots on 20-inch paper. It might not seem like that big a deal to you, but how many of you have seen the black boxes that are all the way around a ballot? Have you seen, raise your hands if you've seen those black boxes. Okay, those are timing marks. With an optical reader, those boxes have to be in exact position for the computer to read where the bubbles are at and for it to ascertain, okay, which bubble's filled in and which bubble isn't. It also, because most states have what's called randomization, from one ballot to the next, you might see Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and whoever the Green Party guy was. You'll see them in random order. So no ballot is going to be the same. Part of that randomization is to prevent against political choice bias. Okay, fine. You want to give the Democrats as many opportunities as you can, I suppose. But when they put ballots, 19-inch ballots on 20-inch paper, the machine had no choice but to reject it. That had to be a purposeful programming. Again, testified by Ben Cotton, that wasn't an accident. And it wasn't from an external intrusion by way of internet. It was programmed in the machines. The very same machines that were tested after the demos and behind closed doors. In other words, they knew it would fail. It was designed to fail. And that's what we intend to show at the Supreme Court. So, the case is Lake and Finchem v. Fontes et al. If you want to write a letter to the Supreme Court, don't send an email because it just goes into spam. Write a letter, make a phone call. That is something you can do. And I pray that you will do it. Now, the other thing that we've got going on, and this isn't all that far from Las Vegas here, in Mojave County, which is on the other side of the river from Laughlin, Mojave County has some pretty courageous folks. We got 2 supervisors who voted to go to hand counting of paper ballots on election day at the precinct level. And then they were threatened with criminal prosecution by the fraud of an Arizona Attorney General, Chris Mays. Well, the Election Fairness Institute, of which I founded some years ago, and now I'm the executive director, we intervened on behalf of Supervisor Ron Gould. We knew we were over the target because when we intervened, and by the way, that's, again, the help from people like John Bailey and Juan and Patrick Byrne, and I mean, it's an endless stream of people who are patriots that are putting their money where their mouth is. Ron Gould is now in court suing the Attorney General for threatening him over a non-statute. In other words, the Arizona statute says the supervisors may choose to use machines. It doesn't say shall use machines. Shall is prescriptive. May is permissive. In other words, the legislature said, if you want to use a machine, you can use a machine to have your election. Well, they chose. They wanted to have that. But the Attorney General in Arizona, apparently she's not much of an attorney, doesn't know the law. She threatened them with criminal prosecution. The next thing you know, we're in court. We know we're over the target because why? Mark Elias and his front group decided they wanted to enter as an intervener. Now, fortunately, we have one of the best lawyers in Arizona that's representing Supervisor Gould. I think we will ultimately prevail in this case. But it's about home rule. How many of you know what county home rule means? Okay, not many. It means that the counties have a right under law to make decisions at a local level. Now, what works for Maricopa County with, 1.9 million voters, 2.9 million voters, isn't going to work in Mojave County with 195,000 voters. This one-size-fits-all argument is a fallacy. Now, one of the things that I'm very happy about is Mark Cook and the Hand Count Roadshow, because he has demonstrated that hand counting of paper ballots at the precinct level on Election Day is not only feasible, it's applicable. It works. Now, I might have the timing off just a little bit, but Maricopa County Republican Party had their leadership election. And I believe it was about 2,300 ballots were involved. There was about half dozen races that were involved. The ideal circumstance to have a non-government election tested with the system that we would like to use. Would it surprise you to know that they counted all 2,300 ballots in just a little over an hour and reported the results 2 hours later? But we're told it's going to cost millions of dollars, it's going to take 3 weeks, and we'll have uncertain election results. Well, it took a little over an hour. The election results were known before everybody left at 5 o'clock. And we're talking about a big meeting. Maricopa County has, I don't know how many precincts, but PCs to the tune of 2,600 of them all gathered together to vote for leadership. The thing I like about the system that Mark has promoted is you have digital overwatch. That means there's a camera watching everything. It could be commuted real time if you wanted to. You could communicate that real time so that you want full transparency. You got full transparency. By the way, we talk a lot about election integrity. That's the end result. What's upstream from that? Election security. We've already talked about the machines, the code, the internet, all that. But also transparency, and that's the thing that I think we have lost since the year 2000. Prior to that year, we had what? We had punch cards. We had a physical piece of evidence to show for an election. Do you guys remember the two clowns that have the punch card up and they're examining it with just great concern, and they got a pencil with a hanging Chad? Remember that photo? That was a psyop, ladies and gentlemen. They were trying to create political theater to get you to think that system wouldn't work. The fact that the punch card was indented should have been enough to indicate the voter's decision. Oh, but it didn't knock the Chad all the way off the card. That is what we call political BS. And quite frankly, it was the beginning of the end of transparent elections, because now you're not permitted to watch the machine. They may say, oh, well, we have poll watchers and we have elections workers. No, this system has been constructed to take control and transparency away from the people. And that is why you should be absolutely outraged. It's time for you to get off the couch, and I know that there's a lot of people here that are dedicated to doing the work. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people you know. I'm going to close with something that we did in Pima County, which is my old county of residence. There were a couple of ladies that decided that they were sick and tired of the school board and the way it was running. And at one of our legislative district meetings, they said, well, what do we have to do to make change? I said, well, why don't the three of you show up at a school board meeting and take a friend? That turned into a massive move within the county. First visit, they had three of them. They went, they saw it, and it's like, okay, I can bring a friend. The second visit, there were 6 of them. Then everybody else brought a friend. Then there were 12, 24, 48, as many as 150 people showed up at board meetings, and they said, oh my, well, we're going to have to do video conferencing now because this is getting too big. That's when you know you're over the target and you're being effective, ladies and gentlemen. When government is afraid of you, as well they should be, you are being effective. So with that, I'd like to remind you, if you want to support me in my Senate race, you can just go to votefinchem.com. If you would like to try and make a trip to Mar-a-Lago, which if you haven't been there, treat yourself one time. Tickets are fairly inexpensive for Mar-a-Lago. Yes, you've got travel expense that's involved, but FinchemEvent.com. Mike Lindell is one of the sponsors. He's on the host committee, along with Roger Stone. Don't know if you know Roger. Have you all heard of Roseanne Barr? Yeah. She's a hoot, by the way. Roseanne is also on the host committee. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me. I'll be at the back. Would love to have the opportunity to talk to you, but show some love and respect for the next speaker. Thank you.